All right, welcome guys. It's 11:30. I think we'll go ahead and get started. I'm James Schuler with Center Technologies, and we have today a optimization through Outlook class. Some of y'all might roll your eyes when you hear that topic. What can be exciting about email and Outlook? But I'm pretty sure once you see the ways that maybe Microsoft intended us to use this product that we seem to use every day incorrectly, the correct way, it'll blow your mind on how efficient you can be once you end up taking advantage of some of its practices. With me today is Todd Swaney, COO of Center Technologies. Todd, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks, James.
Um, Throughout this presentation, we're hopeful that you guys will have questions or want additional guidance as we show you how to set up your Outlook appropriately. If you do, please feel free to put them in the comments. Taylor, who's often producing our events, she's on with us today. Thank you, Taylor. And I also will be keeping a close eye on our comments. So with that, I think we should jump right into it. Todd, we don't do this very often. Thank you for taking this chance with us on doing some trainings. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Do you want to start with explanation, or should we jump right in with screen shares?
We can start with a quick explanation. Everyone, thanks for joining today. James introduced me. Thanks, James, COO of Center Technologies. In the COO role, I'm the assigned integrator for Center for any enterprise. And through my background, you look as you start building machines, and if you look at a business as a machine, or even your role or anything as a series of moving parts and touch points, I like simple. Simple's good, efficient's good. Anything that you can offload to a tool that frees your mind up for critical thinking or creative thinking is what I'm after. And so at Center, one of the things I do, if anyone's interested, is I give a quick whiteboard over the system that I use to run my email. I'm big on single point of data entry. And so I've integrated all that into Microsoft suite of products. We're not going to get through the full system today, but through James is going to help me out, stay on task, not go too deep dive. But hopefully everybody gets a little bit out of it and maybe learns a few capabilities of Outlook that they didn't know existed. Good to go, James?
Yeah, definitely. That was a great explanation. When I look at the way that we used Outlook forever, it's always been reactive to a great degree, and I wind up missing things and then using my Outlook as a way to index and go find old stuff.
Right.
So if you're going to fix that for me, then I'm ready to go.
Yep, that's the goal. All right, so now is when I share my screen.
That'll work. Yeah, I don't even know where you begin.
Okay. James, thumbs up. Share's good.
Yeah, thumbs up. We are great.
Okay. So everybody, let me go to the first slide here. And with any new activity, I like to cover kind of the basics of building habits. You can refer to it as discipline, but discipline is really just the adherence to habits that you've formed. But not a lot of effort is really focused on, the science of a habit and what are there hacks to starting a habit. So I like to throw this in at the beginning because that's really what we're asking everybody to do. Couple of great books on Audible, if anyone's interested, on habits. The Power of Habits is one of my favorites. But the first part of a habit is the cue. Think of this as the trigger. And the key to recognizing the cue, if you want to make it easy on yourself, is to make it obvious. So when we're specifically talking about email, I needed to come up with a cue that tells me, hey, it's time for you to run the process on your inbox. And so for me, that cue was, I actually have two now, but the original one was the scroll bar. So if my inbox got a scroll bar, that was kind of my cue that I needed to run my process, get it triaged so I could go back to my focused work. In my current role at Center, I'm away from my desk for extended periods of time. So now it's time-based. So about 4 hours is the most I'll go in a business day without running the process on my inbox and really all my data. So that's how I handle the cue. But the key there is make it obvious. And then once you experience the cue, it's supposed to elicit the craving. And so if you want to make a craving easy, make it attractive, right? So if you, for me, it was, I'm holding people up. There's decisions that need to be made that are held up, likely in my inbox, that are keeping my directors, my managers, my company, all the people that need this information to move forward a step today. It's holding them up, and so that obviously in my position is a really attractive craving that comes after the cue. And then obviously you got the cue, that's your trigger. The craving is the urge, and then you follow the routine. And so if you're going to follow routine, obviously a 20-step routine is more complicated than a 4-step routine. So the key there to making a routine repeatable is to make it easy. And that's where I like the focus of simplification. The fewest number of moving parts, the simplest machine that you can build, easy routine. And the last part is the reward. So make it satisfying. Ultimately, for me, I have a reward that I go home at the end of the day, and until I do the routine and process everything and get everybody the direction they need, I stay on task until I achieve it. And so that's a pretty fantastic reward. Family likes it when I come home every now and then. And so that's all about building new habits. James, anything surprising there? I think you've seen it once before.
Yeah, I've always liked the build new habits slide. The structure behind it, there actually is a process to building a habit, not just doing something multiple times, multiple days. Helps me out quite a bit. So that's perfect.
Okay. Yeah, and I like to add this in. It's easy to tell somebody just do it, but to give them a blueprint of, hey, here's how you set you up for success, I thought was important. So wanted to share it with everybody today. All right. So now that we understand that our real task is to build a new habit, we understand the components, we understand how to make it easy. Let's look at what we're setting to task. So the main thing that we're doing is we're being disciplined to empty out our data repositories at least once every 24 hours. This is key. This is the discipline. Once every 24 hours, you have to empty out all your data collection points and you have to assemble them in a single collection area. So let's talk at a high level of what some of those collection points are. We have paper. I was a big, college ruled yellow notebook fan from my construction days. And so I wrote down vigorous notes, and I had, a 4 or 5 foot stack of these notepads on my, in the back corner of my office. But the reality is after 3 weeks, they were useless, right? I couldn't go index them. It'd take me too long to find the answer. They weren't very useful. They were useful for a small period of time. So paper's a good one. You have text messages, you have chats, you have email, of course, which is the focus that we'll be showing here in a second. And then you have the worst collection point of all, which is your brain, your memory, the absolute worst. There's a lot of negative impact to trying to keep too much in your brain in terms of your creativity, your interaction, your productivity throughout the day. And then outside of work, it drags you back in, and it doesn't let you disengage from your work environment and fully engage in your family or social environment.
Your brain might not be able to keep up, but mine can.
Yeah, science, James. Read a bunch of books. So that's the task. Is we have all these collection points. The discipline, the routine, the habit that we need to build is to empty them out. And so when I looked, okay, what can be my single repository that I'm going to empty everything into? I looked at what I use in my tool sets. I want something natively integrated. I don't want a third-party middleware. And I want to know that it's being innovated quarterly. And so I picked Outlook. Sorry. There we go. And so I picked Outlook, and that's what we're going to get to here in a second. And then I do want to mention, though, that I did also decide to take it a step further and eliminate the paper. So with any system that I build, I like single point of data entry, and you want that data just to flow through the processes and in your desired state. So James, I picked OneNote. OneNote seamlessly integrates with Outlook, and specifically Outlook tasks. So what this enabled me to do is go from our meeting to our meeting to our meeting, taking notes on my Microsoft Surface touchscreen or typing into OneNote. I could do a few clicks. It would build a task for me, and it basically allowed me to script my days, which I'll illustrate here once we share the Outlook demo.
Yeah, I can imagine hearing some of that. If I don't use OneNote religiously already, it probably already sounds fairly intimidating. I know I've adopted a lot of the stuff that you put into here, but have not adopted OneNote to the same level you have. So for those that are listening on how to improve this, Todd, what advice would you have for them if OneNote's not part of their day-to-day already?
Yeah,
Make it one?
I would say make it one. OneNote, like all Microsoft productivity suite of tools, its uses and its capabilities are vast, but don't let it overwhelm you. Don't let it be intimidating. Start using it, build your notebooks, build your tab structure, build your page structure, make it routine, make it standardized, and then learn a few shortcuts that allow you to take an actionable item, say in a meeting, say you take 30 notes, 2 of those are actionable, learn the shortcuts that allow you to change that sentence into a task that then gets pushed into your Outlook and into your single repository. So even in your notes now, you're flushing your notes every 24 hours into your actionable list.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Let's move forward.
Okay. All right. So I'm a systems guy. I like systems. So here's the approach that we'll take. For every email in your inbox, there's 4 decisions that you can make. Love it simple. 4. When we look at routine, we said make it simple. 4 is a pretty low number. So my absolute favorite is the first one, which is delete. And these are the 4 Ds. Absolute favorite is delete. Something comes in, you read it, you consume it, it has no future value, delete it. Obviously spam, junk, we all love deleting those. So that's the number 1 D, is delete it. You want to get it out of your inbox. Again, your inbox is not a repository, a long-term, it's not your long-term action list. It is a 24-hour repository. So you need to empty it every 24 hours. Delete, good one. Next one is do it. Take care of it right now. These are emails, yes, no, pass, fail. You know, these are emails that you can take action on right now. Give them the answer. Once you're done, delete it, get it out of your 24-hour repository there. From there, we're getting into multi-step decisions. So on defer, this is where we're going to have a task, and let's say it's not urgent. We have a full day to accomplish. We want to look at an email and say, okay, I need to deliver this answer by Friday. I know that it's Tuesday, and I'll do it on Thursday. So I'll show everyone, once we share the Outlook, how to set a message to defer, get it out of your inbox, and then make sure that we have full accountability that we'll do it at the right time and get our answer submitted on the right time. And then if you're a manager, director, whatever role, all of us have to delegate at times. And so we may get an email that requires us to solicit information outside of ourselves. And then we have to set accountability for that response. We're not going to miss it. We know when we expect it. We know who to expect it from. And then we can set a flag that will follow up there, get that answer, and then ultimately submit our answer back to whoever we need to report to. So James, the 4 Ds, pretty simple.
Yeah, so every time an email comes in, you're asking yourself this question: where does that email fall? Have you ever found an email that doesn't fall into one of these 4 categories?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and the answer is no. It's been pressure tested. I have people tell me all the time, you know, my job's complicated. I can't do one of these. It's all come down to just these 4. Been operating with this system close to a decade now, and it just works.
I like that you enjoy the delete it the most.
Yeah.
You've told me before that you want to keep that front screen of your Outlook to 25 emails.
That's correct.
If you can get a deletion, you're probably already giving yourself the pat on the back, some level of reward for making a quick decision and keeping it under 25.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and it's if you're a task-oriented person, you know, these little small wins add up to big wins throughout the day, week, month, quarter. So it's all part of the larger goal.
Okay, so you got the different ways to ingest data. You have your OneNote that you're doing your notes on, but everyone's probably thinking differently of how they're going to ingest data. And then you have the 4 Ds to quickly analyze what to do with it when an email hits. You
Right.
want to show us what that looks like in action?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'll move the demo over. All right, how are we looking, James?
Yeah, we look great.
Okay. So first off, what I want to do is just I want my Outlook to be customized for my needs. And so I'll just quickly set it up with my preferences. Little bit of shock value, but I tell everyone in the entire company, the first thing that you should do is shut off all the different ways that Outlook wants to get your attention. So right here, I went to options, mail. I want to shut off play a sound. I want to shut off show an envelope. I want to shut off everything. So 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 different ways that Outlook's trying to get your attention. You don't need
But
it.
how will I know that somebody wants my attention?
If you're good at your job, you have email. If you have a job, you have email. It's guaranteed. All these are a distraction. The process of running the 4Ds, its main goal is to get you in your email and out of your email so you can focus on your time blocking, actually achieving the tasks instead of just triaging distractions. So right there, we set it up. And then, so now I've eliminated all the distractions. Now I seek out my email. It doesn't seek me. That's the key. So other things that I want to do is I want little cheats. I want to set up some things that help me out. And so if I go to the layout here in the folder pane, I want to turn on my favorites. This may or may not have been turned on default. And so after you're in your job for a while and you have subfolders, so you see here, I've just built a few subfolders, James. I got 1, 2, 3. The reality is that once you're in your job for a while, you're going to have 30, 40. And what happens is these subfolders scroll all this information right here off the screen. And so I don't want to have to scroll down to check those. I want to have them up in my vision. And so I put them up here in my favorites. So I'm going to be very selective about what's in my favorites. Sent items, no. I don't want those in here. But let's pick junk email because sometimes stuff gets caught up in junk and I don't ever want to have to use the excuse, oh, it was in my junk mail, didn't see it. And then also I want to come down and I want to make sure that I'm sending is actually going out. So I have my inbox, I have my junk email, and I have my outbox. And so what I've done is I've covered my excuses and I've held myself accountable to not have excuses. If I send an email and it didn't go out, there'll be a bold 1 there. If I have something in my junk, there'll be a bold 1 there. We're all familiar with the inbox, but I recommend doing the junk and the outbox as well. All right, so now that we have our favorites there, I'm not a big fan of the right reading pane. This is just a personal preference. So I'm going to move that to the bottom. So I got my reading pane there. I like to look at all this data. And then I'm also going to add the to-do bar and tasks. So in the earlier screens, I mentioned my single actionable list. Here it is. So this is what I standardize on. This is the Outlook taskbar, and it's ran by these flags here. So James, when we talk about the 24 hours, your inbox is over here. It has to be flushed, and it builds here. My OneNote builds here. My brain, type it in right here, builds here. And so what I use for that is everybody's familiar with the office desk pop in or drive by and somebody says, hey, can you do this for me? What I do is I push it back on them and I say, happy to, please email me that. And then that way it goes in a 24-hour repository, then I can put it over in my actionable list. So James, any questions on the actionable list or how to kind of quickly set up your Outlook?
No, I just want to tell everybody that I prefer my reading pane on the right. That part, although a personal preference, doesn't really change the accountability component to this. So if you're more comfortable with a different view, don't stress over this. So you can keep your view.
Yep. Yeah. So highly suggest the favorites. Highly, this is key, right? The system doesn't work without this, but the reading pane right, reading pane bottom has no impact on the ultimate goal.
Right.
Just preference. Okay. So now we're looking at my inbox and we have some sample emails here. And so we'll look at the 4Ds. And so the first one obviously was deleted. And so let's say here, you know, Miriam's trying to reach me on Teams. I responded to her with Teams. I can delete that. Bam. That's my favorite, right? So now I just have a few more to go. So if I look and I want, also with delete is archive. Didn't quite fit the 4Ds, but I'll throw it in there with a slash at the end of delete. You know, if something, let's say here's a payroll update, I don't need to do anything on it now, but it has future value. Well, then I'm going to drag that out and I'm going to put it in a subfolder. So now I have it if I need it, but again, I'm emptying that 24-hour repository. Now we'll get to defer and delegate. So let's say that here, Alex or Alan is sending me something, and let's say that hypothetically it's due Friday. Today's Tuesday, and I want to do it on Thursday. This right here, this little red flag, in my opinion, is one of the most undervalued, underutilized features of Outlook, and also one of the simplest. So I'm going to take this email, and I'm going to come here, and I'm just going to say, okay, my due date that I need to act on this is Thursday. So I'm going to pick the 28th, say okay, and we'll close it. And a few things happened. One is the flag shows now, and it also highlighted it yellow, but there's a problem. Is today's Tuesday, I have my actions on Thursday, but I have to empty it every 24 hours. So if you see over here, I created a subfolder called flagged for follow-up. So what you do is you take this, you drag it over there. So we've satisfied the 24-hour, and by moving it over here to a subfolder versus deleting it, my task remains over here. So if I go to flag for follow-up, we'll see that the subject was important account updates. And if we look over here, you see that there's a task automatically created, important account updates. So it kept everything intact, and we met all of our criteria. So now, let's say hypothetically it's Thursday. I come in, I've scripted my weeks. I know exactly what I need to do. I double click that, and bam, it opens the email. If I'm done with it, and I come here, mark complete, and you'll see that now it's gone. So let's say that we have one where we have to, so that was defer.
Real quick, Todd, I want to add one thing. You did a great job of showing how to kind of complete it. Now that one's done, and now the way you mark it complete, another way to do that is on the right-hand side, just clicking the red flag, right? You can even just empty that as you knocked them out as well. I noticed you moved that email over to the subfolder. I'm sorry, the folder marked for follow-up. Do you ever go in there?
I don't. I just let that build. Most, my Office 365 subscription leaves me plenty of room for storage. And so I just leave that. If our administrator ever tells me, hey, you got to reduce some stuff, well, then I'm looking at my deletes and I'm looking at my flag for follow-up.
Sure. So no need, once you've moved it, you're moving it for the sake of getting it out of sight, out of mind, with the awareness that the right side of your Outlook is going to make it in mind at the right time.
Correct. Exactly. We'll cover deferred, and then we'll kind of look a little more at the structure here in our remaining time. And so let's say that we have a deferred. So here's one from Megan, and let's say I need information from James. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to forward this, put in James. There we go. I'm going to pick a fictitious person. James, you're now Joni. So I'm going to do that, but what I'm going to do is while it's still here before I send it, I need to have accountability for when Joni owes me this information. And so I need it tomorrow. And so if we look, I'm just going to make it simple. Joni. Okay, so I set that flag for tomorrow. I'm going to send this to Joni, and in here I put, I need something. And I'm going to send it. It's not working.
The beauty of a demo Outlook, huh?
There we go.
Anything memorized.
Yep. And so And so I've sent that, and now you see it created a task. And so it's not in my memory that, oh, James owes me something tomorrow. I don't need to remember it. It's here. I have full accountability on myself, on my ultimate answer, and also on the piece of data that I need from James. However, now I'm back to my original email. I need the full accountability. So if James is getting it to me tomorrow, then I can submit it on Thursday. All right, save that. I moved over here, flag for follow-up. So now I have my ultimate task. I need to submit my answer, but I'm also dependent on James. I have his accountability there. And so what you're building is an ironclad way to hold yourself accountable, to hold anyone else accountable for information, and there is no escape. James can attest to it. If you owe me something, there's no getting out of it.
You can't say things like it got lost in my inbox.
Nope.
You can't say things like it's stuck in my outbox. None of the excuses that you typically hear from probably vendors that annoy you, or maybe sales reps that might annoy you guys. You can't use those anymore.
Yep.
So the system is pretty ironclad that way.
Yeah, and what I share with people who view this, as a challenge to incorporate this, if you are disciplined, if you run it, and if your brand within your company and outside your company is that there's no escape. If you told Todd that you'll get it to him, he's going to hunt you down every 2 days effortlessly until you get it to him. You start getting preferential treatment. And I know that shouldn't be the way it is, but people respond to your stuff because they know there's no escape and they think there's hope in other people forgetting about it. It's impossible to forget about it if you follow the follow-ups and the 4Ds.
I really like doing no date stuff as well up there. The things
Yep.
that are important to me is something hits me, a news story, an article that I know needs to be used in a future meeting. Will you just retouch on that real quick?
Yeah, thanks, James. So the way that the taskbar is set up, again, with all Microsoft stuff, there's probably 100 different ways that you can color code and change icons. I like it real simple. You either have a date in which it segments it automatically for you today, tomorrow, this week, next week, and then so on, or you have no date. That is the only two that I use. I don't use colors. It's all date based. And so when we look at this area up here, why would you assign something for no date? Well, this is primarily brain. And so when I need to empty my brain, so I'm the COO. I have one-on-ones with our COO, our CEO founder, Chris Pace. And so I constantly have ideas. Oh, I need to talk to him about this. And so when I do, I just pop it open, idea one, save and close it, and now it's there. And so here in my no date, I have my recurring meetings. I have, any kind of innovation, any kind of optimization ideas, anything that I need to capture from my brain quickly that's going to have kind of a standing purpose, I'll build it here. And so that's how I leverage those, James.
Yeah, I like that anything at all that becomes a give me an example. And then you don't have those examples ready to go. And so the
Correct.
next time you see something like that, I make that chapter and I start recording those examples. Next time I'm with somebody and they say, give me an example, I've got that already listed for me. You're essentially, the whole thing is just supplementing your long-term and short-term memory.
Yep. And then one of my most popular ones. And so if you see, I just typed here in the field and it puts it to today, but I don't want it there. I can either go in and set it to no date, or I can just manually move it up. But my wife is constantly dropping hints throughout the year about things she would like for her birthday. Bam. Yeah. Put them right there. Birthday comes. I have no anxiety. Not waiting till the last minute. Covered.
I need to adopt that one. I haven't done that yet.
Yep.
And every year I end up getting stressed over not knowing what she wants for her birthday. So this is great. I know adopting these practices has really made things easier for me, and I've become a better employee, better leader, better everything because of it. I know that it's intimidating for most to watch this in 30 minutes and say that I can go in and make these same adjustments. But if any of these pain points are something that you're struggling with, I highly recommend giving this a try. Limping in or putting just a toe in the water, I don't necessarily recommend that. But change your outlook. Put this up here as a reminder on the right-hand side that you have a taskbar that can be used with time commitments. Change your favorites on the top left and start making some subtle changes to that component to it. If you can take that on, then you can start learning about OneNote. Might be the only way I'd say limping in could even potentially work. As long as that data ingestion, though, ends up here, you will be better off than you were before. We are short on time, Todd. I can't thank you enough for doing that. I got no questions right now in the chat. I can only assume it's because of how thorough you were. If there are any last second questions, if you guys want to just do a quick unmute and just speak up, we're happy to field a couple questions. Give it just a second. I noticed people still today, including myself, have a tough time finding the mute button quickly. All right, we might not have any questions. So with that, Todd, thanks again for doing this. And
my pleasure.
Let's give David Smith, of all of our favorite people, let's give David 1 second to type real quick. So David, we're not going to wait that long for you to type. Oh,
do y'all use rules at all to auto sort?
Great question. I would recommend to use minimal use of rules. If you're using a rule to parse something out, my only use of it is I get copied on every single smile back that's in neutral or negative for all of Center's tickets, lots of tickets every day, week, month. And so just to not crush my phone, I do use a rule. And then so I have a once every day process where I go into that folder and look. But in rare circumstances, it fits, but not as a general use.
Good question, David. There are other areas too, Todd, that there's integration between Microsoft products. I know in your data ingestion, you showed Teams, and there was one other on that slide. But there are many other areas outside of OneNote that also ingest into your Outlook. So although rules, this is not rules, there are ways though that you can have tasks and other things link into your Outlook for you.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of using the task, the Outlook task, as your single repository. As you know, Microsoft evolves their tool sets, and as your use of those changes, it can all integrate. And so if you can pump data into your inbox, then you can run the 4Ds, then you can have it actionable in a single pane.
Perfect. Well, Todd, I think that's everybody's questions for today. Thanks again for doing this with us. And if you all listening today want to join us tomorrow to deep dive into Teams, we'll be doing that tomorrow with Todd Smith, our CTO. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.